Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Groovy Movie Podcast. And the film that we're talking about today has changed the way that I will look at a cheese grater for the rest of my life. We saw Evil Dead Rise.
Woo!
My name is Ellie.
My name is Molly.
And we were lucky enough to go to a preview screening at the Prince Charles Cinema of Evil Dead Rise this week. We got to see it with a Q&A. There was a Q&A with the director, Lee Cronin, and it was a great time. We had a great time.
It was a great time. Director and writer.
Director and writer, yeah, sorry.
He crafted a wonderful movie there.
Yeah, he did both. And it was a real cool experience. It was our first time going to the Prince Charles Cinema. It was in Leicester Square. So we had a lovely old time, grand old time. And then we thought we'd sit and we thought we'd give you our thoughts on Evil Dead Rise. Because it's actually not out in England. Or, I don't think it's out anywhere until the 21st of April. It did premiere at South by Southwest last month. So some people have seen it already. I feel a little bit special having seen it already.
We were the first public screening, apparently. That's what they said.
Well, yeah, but he said that, but then I don't know if that means outside of the premiere at South by Southwest then.
I'd say outside of that, so we could buy tickets. It was purchase ticket. It wasn't an invite in any way. We're not that special yet. I'd say that meant first time anyone from the public can go see it because we're the general public.
Very cool. If you don't know anything about Evil Dead Rise, it's part of the Evil Dead franchise, which no doubt you've heard of, that started with Sam Raimi's films back in the 80s. They did a reboot in 2013, and as far as I'm aware, this is within that universe, but I don't necessarily think it counts as a sequel, but it's kind of a sequel. It's all in the Evil Dead universe. They all count towards each other, but...
There's no direct tie-ins to anything, but they've
in the
film, but they've not... No one's calling it a reboot in any way.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't a reboot either. It was just like another Evil Dead story.
Yeah.
Obviously, because this will be out early, there will be spoilers. We're going to talk about the entire film. Go see the film. It is fantastic. Go and see it on a big screen. You were saying, and they actually said at the time, somebody asked the question to the director, it was originally destined for HBO.
It was going to be on HBO Max, because I've just read that Bruce Campbell said he feels like the best way to carry it through, because they did Ash versus the Evil Dead. That was a streaming series.
Right.
Originally it was intended to be on a streaming service. Thank God it wasn't.
Yeah.
They turned it around and said no.
It made so much more sense on a big screen.
It did. I'm not saying it was originally intended. I believe he said they filmed it though with the intent of it being a theatrical release. So
okay.
I don't know what the plans were.
Yeah.
But it was going to be on HBO Max. It wasn't. It was so good in the cinema. We got to see it with a big audience as well.
A whole bunch of fans.
We got to see a whole bunch of fans. Because it was this big screening, the director was sitting there with us. Everyone was very vocal, which was so cool. Everyone was cheering,
laughing.
You could hear like the terror of going like, ooh, like all of that. And it was so cool. So definitely go and see it as soon as you can for that reaction, but also just in a theatre anytime. Yeah. It was brilliant.
It was so cool because it's such a gory film, which we'll obviously get into. It was so cool hearing everybody collectively just be like, oh, that's awful. Like to every single blood-soaked scene, it was just like, oh, like what is that?
It was just imagine him sitting there being like, haha. Like he got a scene coming up and he's like, you're gonna hate this, guys.
He actually said before it started, he addressed the audience before it started and he said, oh, is there anybody who sort of struggles with horror movies? And he got people to raise their hands if they did. And then he apologised for what we were about to see, which I thought was hilarious. It like set the tone perfectly. Speaking of an audience, that actually leads us perfectly into what I was going to say and my first favourite point, which was the title card when she rose out of the water and Evil Dead Rise came up behind the tree line or the mountains. I feel like it was a tree line. It wasn't mountains, was it? The audience went crazy for it. It was so great.
The music, that was so like deafening as well. It was just like real, like my body was so tense, like, oh, it's happening.
It was so really good.
Leading on with what you're saying about the opening, I really liked the opening shot of the camera weaving through, like obviously when the demon does in the other films, but then it being a drone. I thought that was awesome. Really got me into it. That was a really cool shot.
It was a really cool touch on it, and then her mashing it into her face was just brutal.
She scalped.
Yeah, what a start.
Horrible. Instantly got you into it, and I was like, we're in for a ride.
I actually really liked them starting with a different... What do I mean? I really liked them starting in a different place than the rest of the film set, and then obviously the end of the film jumped straight back that to be like, this is what happened. This is how that happened. Sorry.
Oh, because it's like one day earlier. And I was like, oh, hang on. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I just liked her, then she came down into the thing. And I actually really liked that she didn't hear anything. She wasn't involved in any of the chaos that unfolded, but she's about to be. But the demon can drive. The demon's got some great driving skills because she made it all the way to the cabin still.
That demon was determined because, it went a while before coming out, I assume.
What do you mean?
Like, normally it seems like a matter of like 10, they get kind of possessed and then 10 minutes later they are demon vibes.
Yeah.
Demon vibes.
I'll let you get where you want to go and then we'll kick it off, okay?
That was quite an out there cabin.
It looked quite remote.
He was having a lovely time. He was having a lovely road trip. He was like, I won't come out just yet.
So actually, this scenery is really kind of nice. Maybe I'll hang about for a while.
Yeah, I get it. Cabin in the woods. And then we weren't in a cabin in the woods.
Exactly. It started with what you're used to and then it took you somewhere entirely different.
I really liked it being set in an apartment. I thought it was obviously a very similar idea that they are stuck in one small location. Obviously, then with the cabin, they're in the forest. They can't leave the forest.
Yeah.
This is the same deal that they then couldn't go down the stairs or get in a lift. I just felt this one felt way more specific on that. I felt they were a lot more trapped.
Yeah, it was a bit more claustrophobic, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because he maybe laid out the design of the apartment more and I was very clear where everything was.
Sure.
Because I know in the original, obviously, you see all the cabin and then you see the woods. It just, for whatever reason, I felt so much more like they are truly stuck.
Yeah, I think when they're in the cabin, even though, they can go outside, but they can't go very far, that takes away that slight element of, like, the claustrophobia. Whereas with this, first of all, they're in a high-rise anyway, so you're not jumping out the window, you're not, you can't do anything like that. And then he quickly took away all of the exits, with the stairs, and he showed that the entrance to the garage was a bit rusty and unreliable. So, I agree. It definitely had more of a... Yeah, that feeling of, they're actually kind of stuck here.
And then I think as well, because I think they were then stuck and then they couldn't get to the hallway because she was in the hallway. Then Bridget was in the apartment
gradually
with them.
Closing in on them.
Exactly. They were blocked off at every angle.
Yeah.
Consistently.
And the relief, very, very minor relief because it didn't last very long, but of them getting down in the lift and then being in the garage. And even though they're not going to get out, you're kind of like,
there's somewhere.
A taste of freedom, a taste of them kind of getting out. But yeah, I agree. I really like that as well. He did actually, Lee Cronin actually did say in the Q&A afterwards that he touched on a similar point of saying that the Evil Dead films in general are this idea of people going to a place and then, the horrors occurring around them. And so the idea with this one is it was actually the horrors coming to them at home and coming into that like familial setting. And so it was a really cool way of twisting it.
Another thing about the apartment, it then led into some really cool shots. Specifically, the one that comes to mind is when Ellie crawls through the vents and then pops down behind her. Loved that.
Very cool.
It reminded me of, which I don't think was intended, Lee Cronin spoke about some of, he had some references chucked in there. This one, that specifically reminded me, I don't know if you'll recall, in Spider-Man, when Stan Lee has the headphones on and they're having the fight behind him slightly out of focus. Exactly like that. I don't think that's what he intended. Great scene though. She popped the headphones on and I was like, if something's out of focus behind her, I'm in. And it did. And it was great.
I'm confident that was not an Amazing Spider-Man 2 reference.
Spider-Man 1.
I'm confident that it wasn't an Amazing Spider-Man reference because it has been done in many a film before.
Sure.
I don't know that The Amazing Spider-Man from 2012 was the first time to do that. But I agree, I really, really did like it. And then her in the window afterwards was eerie. And I'm so glad she saw her because that could have gone... If that had been another character, that could have been a great sneaky death scene.
Sneaky death.
Going off of what you said about her going in the grate, I just feel like we get to share... I'm excited that we get to share this information. Lee did share that the cat is fine.
Oh, yes.
The cat in the grate is fine. One of the ladies in the audience asked, and it was a hilarious question. It got a big laugh from the audience. And he confirmed that he would not be killing the cat. I do feel like we need to get it out of the way because we addressed it in the intro, but the cheese grater was exactly as disgusting as you would think it would be. It was completely the worst thing I've ever seen. I actually didn't even really fully see it. No. I had to look away. It was a gory film throughout, but that was the one bit that I knew if I saw it, I would not get that out of my head for weeks.
I think that was such a collective experience of her picking it up and chucking it, and everyone went, oh no, we know what's gonna, like, you're fully aware, like, she literally, as soon as you touched it, it was like, put it back down.
The guy next to me literally was like, oh no. I was like, yeah, no, this is awful. So good. But yeah, it was, the cheese grater emoji has become a little bit synonymous with the film. I know that the Twitter hashtag has the cheese grater next to it at the minute. And I just think that's so funny. And somebody at the screening actually got him to sign a cheese grater. I did see that on Twitter as well.
He referenced that on Twitter earlier. I just saw that as well. Another one. He was like, maybe I'll sign some. I was like, oh my God.
Great little prop. Love that.
So good.
I will say, to continue on from that, I could be fact checked on this, but I do feel like this is probably one of the bloodiest horror films that I've seen. Because it was pretty much, as soon as it kicked off, everything was blood soaked. She got that glass through her hands straight away, which is obviously just a little bit of blood, and then it just went from there. You know, the glass eating, knifing, there was just so much going on.
The lift.
And exactly, and then the lift just sealed the deal. But it wouldn't be an Evil Dead film without a blood-soaked couple of characters.
It's funny when we were watching the first Evil Dead and we'd say, Bruce Campbell's covered in blood, and then he wasn't covered in blood. She was covered in blood as well, like the entire time.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell gets absolutely pelted with blood and then walks in and has like the tiniest little bit on his chin. But they were so consistent with it. They were just soaked and then they stayed completely drenched in blood.
They'd like do a new shot and they'd be like, get in the blood pool. You had more blood on you than that.
Yeah, I feel like when you're that covered in it, there's no consistency. It's just like, just cover her, just soak her. I do want to say as well, the little girl in it, her name's Nell in real life.
Cassie in the film.
Cassie, that was it. Fantastic.
She was brilliant.
She broke my heart. She made me laugh.
She had some brilliant lines. Like, I think she maybe had the kind of best. She's maybe the best character, but just everything she said, I was like, that was really good. She just had some real, like, oh, you're so cute moments. I think you have to have a nice little kid in the movies, didn't you?
Yeah.
I really liked Bridget, and when she saw the cut on her face, I got so excited, purely on the basis I was like, when we were watching the other two and you're kind of getting excited for the actors to be like, this is your big scene of you like freaking out or something, I was like, Bridget's got the scene, she's gonna go nuts. And she did
her moment.
I was sitting there like, she's gonna do it. Good for her. She's so cool.
I agree. And they all had their moments. All of their transforming moments were just, not transforming, but their first sort of moment of being taken over by the demon and possessed by the demon were awesome. I loved the cast. I thought the cast was really, really great. And I think with a single location horror, pretty much a single location horror, the cast has to be good. Otherwise, what are you know, it's hard to kind of keep people entertained if you've not got a cast that are so good. I just loved them, and I was just rooting for them. I was rooting for Ellie. She was bad, but I was still just like,
She was just charming.
I just want you to succeed. I support women's wrongs, and it wasn't even her wrongs.
She wasn't doing anything.
She did nothing wrong.
When she was like, "Don't let them take my babies," and I was like, "Okay." Anything she said as the demon was just so brilliant. I don't know how else to describe it.
It gave me a very similar feeling to Lupita's voice in Us. I know they weren't on the same vibe, but that really uncomfortable, like, I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah.
It's just a really, the sound of it was, but I do get that with the demon voice in Evil Dead anyway, even in the earlier ones. The voice just brings something out of me.
Gets, like, it's really, I don't know if it's like really bassy or something, you really feel it.
Yeah.
I feel as though she had a bigger part as, this could be wrong, I'm maybe just remembering it wrong, but I feel as though she had the kind of bigger part as the demon.
I know what you mean, because, and I think it has to do with the location. In the cabin, they're normally shut in the basement. So they kind of, all they get to do is just shout from the basement, and then they get out towards the end, whereas they didn't really trap her anywhere. They trapped her outside, but she still had a lot of the chatter going on.
Exactly. In Yeah, because they're either in the basement and then they're doing other things. And then especially where obviously Mia is a main character in the reboot one and she turns, she still is gone for quite a few scenes.
Exactly.
Whereas it did still happen that where Ellie was separated by the door for some of it, she wasn't always there. But then she just had so much kind of characterization when she was saying about the dad and then she's saying all the... And I really liked that.
Yeah.
I think she then had a lot going for her in that sense. So I thought she was really cool.
No, I agree. You spent a lot more time... Well, it felt like you did. As herself and as the possessed version of herself, which is awesome because Alyssa Sutherland is brilliant. A babe.
Where everyone was obviously getting very into it and very vocal, I was really hoping everyone would cheer when she said Mummy's with the maggots now and no one did.
I know, but there was like a collective... people laughed. People did laugh. I think it's such a good line.
It's so good.
Ever since I heard it in that trailer, it has not left my brain. It has become a part of my personality. It's such a good line. I love it.
I loved her so much. I was meant to add it on to my other point and I didn't get to, so I'll say it briefly now. When Ellie crawls through the vent and is out of focus, when Bridget has the cloak on her and looks like a ghost in the background. Brilliant.
I knew you'd love it. You love a bedsheet ghost.
I didn't see it at first and everyone kind of went and I was like, oh, Ellie, what just happened? And you're like, she's in the background as a ghost. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't see it.
I was like, get ready for this. It's her Michael Myers moment.
It's happening.
It was good. I did like that. I think I speak for everyone when I say that the second a chainsaw appears in an Evil Dead movie, it's just, the feeling is too much. You know exactly how it's going to go. You know there's going to be a chainsaw and it still appears and you're just like, I love it. What are they going to do with that? It makes me so happy every single time.
I agree.
It's always got to be in there. Even if it's in there for 2 minutes, it has to be in there.
It's got to deliver. I feel like it has to deliver kind of one of the final kills, which it did in this one as well.
Well, yeah, it aided in the final kill, didn't it?
It's got to help.
What did you think of the wood chipper? What did you think of them? Let's jump slightly back for a sec. What did you think of them moulded together as one big mess of people?
I thought that was very sick and twisted of Mr. Lee Cronin. I thought it was very fun and unique of him though as well. What? But yeah.
I think it was almost as well a softer way of, unfortunately, you are killing kids. And I'm not going to say it was a nicer way of doing it.
You didn't see them as obvious. Though,
exactly.
It hid them slightly.
It wasn't as aggressive as straight up just killing 2 kids separately.
I did think that because when they stab Stephanie, shout out to Stephanie, when they stabbed Bridget, I was like, that was quite a lot. Down the throat. But then she was fine, so like obviously didn't kill her. I was like, that was quite a big...
Thank God she was okay.
Yeah.
She's possessed, but she's fine.
Save my girl. The wood chipper loved it because it made it rain blood. And I thought that was so clever.
Had to do it to him.
She wasn't covered in enough blood, quite frankly.
Oh.
They had to get a little bit more in, I think.
Oh, I see. Right, yeah. They were like, how do we take this? I wonder how much blood they get through.
There was a lot in that movie. He did say, didn't he, when he was like, you can only use this much blood. Lee Cronin said, you're allowed this much blood. And he was like, double.
Yeah.
And I felt that.
Yeah, it was, like we said, it was a bloody. There's no other way to describe it. If you're going to describe it in one word, describe it for me in one word. Describe Evil Dead Rise for me in one word.
It's gory. I think it's probably the best way to say it, right?
Go for something a little bit spicier.
Spicier. Vomit-inducing.
That's
hyphenated. Yeah. It made me feel slightly queasy.
A little bit. It was a little bit intense.
Again, the apartment, not to keep going back to the apartment, but one of my favourite shots that they kept using, which I was really pleased they did, was through the peephole.
Yeah.
Thought that was awesome. Glad they kept going back to it. It was that it's slightly obscured thing. So when they were running down the hallway and then you heard a scream.
Yeah.
And then she'd appear and then she ran at the camera and things like that.
Oh.
Lovely.
2014 Tumblr vibes of like the fisheye lens. But also I agree because she came up to the peephole once and it was a jump scare, and then she sort of left the shot and then came back and she just walked in slowly, and I really liked that he didn't do 2 jump scares.
Well, because one of the other ones was the guy running at it as well, so not even her.
Oh,
just
maybe
someone asking for help.
That might actually be what I was thinking of, but there was one, at least a jump scare through the peephole, and then she just walked in slowly. And that was creepy enough.
Yeah. But another one I liked, this is my other shot that I really liked. I believe it's called a diopter split diopter. If I'm saying that wrong, apologies. where two things are in focus at the same time.
Yeah.
So something in the foreground, something in the background.
Yeah. He did that a couple times.
Really liked it. He used a nice amount of those, and they made me.
They're like an uncomfortable shot.
I think as well, because you think you want to. For me, at least, it's the whole thing of you want to look, but you don't want to look. So when there's two things happening, you have to look at both, and then your eyes are very moving between the two, and then I feel very vulnerable at that point to something happening.
Yeah, and they weren't even necessarily used for moments where there was maybe, when you can sense a jump scare coming or something like that. But they sort of took a moment that as two individual shots wouldn't particularly be eerie and made it as one very creepy shot. Almost, like they're not looking over the shoulder of that person, but a lot of them were, an up close of someone's face and then the others in the background. It just made the shot 10 times eerier and the moment 10 times eerier as well. Definitely. I love those. I'm with you on that one.
I guess it's another modern take on things. So this time it's in the apartment, whereas it was in the cabin. And then in the previous ones, it was a tape, but now it was a vinyl. I suppose not modern. A vinyl isn't too modern, but rather than it being cassette, it was a different one. I loved that it was buried underground. I loved Danny going in there. That terrified me. I was so scared for him.
Just like, please be careful.
The statue falling forward as well. Like that was a really cool bit.
Yeah.
I loved that whole setting. Just looked really interesting. There was like
as soon as he went down there, I was like, "What are you doing? Why? Now is not the time to be doing this."
And then Bridge dropped the pizza.
But Cassie did eat some, and I was like, "Yep,
Good for you, girl."
don't let it go to waste."
She dropped the sodas.
Yeah, but the pizza's fine. It's a little bit mushed.
Yeah, you can bring it up. The other two boxes would have been alright.
Yeah.
What did you think? Because the book looked different in this one. Had some teeth on the side. The blood droplets, I wasn't sure if that was something that had been referenced before, but I thought that was really, if it was new, I liked it. If it carried on, I liked it. But do you have any opinions on the book?
I think the book has never looked inviting, but it looked even less inviting this time. I think the face on the old one is creepy, but it being bound shut by teeth should probably tell you that you shouldn't open the book.
Yeah.
And Danny didn't really care. He was like, I'm just gonna give it a little go.
I wondered if there was a connection between this and the 2013 one, specifically because when they were looking through the pages, they looked like they'd been blood soaked. And I remember one of the last shots in the 2013 one is the blood raining down the book. And I didn't know if that was connected or if maybe the book looked like that all the time or anything. I didn't know if...
That's a really good point.
I watched the 2013 one the night before, so I should remember.
No, but I don't know that there's actually been... You're right, I don't think there's actually... Let me Google it and we'll see, because then we can say whether it is...
Yeah.
Okay, I've actually found out. It says that Evil Dead Rise is not a sequel to the 2013 remake, but is instead a follow-up of sorts to the original trilogy. So it's not a sequel to the original trilogy, but it's more in the universe of the original ones than it is a follow-up to the 2013 one, which is weird because the font looked the same. So I was under the impression it was a sequel of sorts, but not really.
That feels like that makes more sense though as well because of everything Lee Cronin was saying about meeting with Sam Raimi, and then he said, jokingly pitched a new Evil Dead which was linked to Army of Darkness. So that kind of makes sense that he would almost carry on from that in a way. Then linking to how this one ended when they establish in both films, to say we separate the 2013 one to the originals or whatever, when they establish how you sort it out, basically how you kill the demon, whatever. In the first ones they say about like decapitation or things like that, and then in 2013 he buries her and then she's alive and then it's fine.
Yeah,
because I then wasn't sure in this one, are they going to take either avenue? They obviously then didn't save anyone. Yeah. They all died, but they didn't kind of try and save them. I wasn't sure if they were going to open a new way of that, or that then could have been a link of, if they can bury them and bring them back.
Yeah.
It's linked to the 2013 one. And then they didn't do either, so I then wasn't sure on... I don't know if they referenced kind of methods that would have linked to it.
That's a really good point, and I actually do like that no one was really saved in this one. It is a shame because the characters were great, but for the sake of the film, I do like that it all kind of went to crap and didn't come back.
I agree with you fully on that, of this was more brutal, the fact that no one came out from it. And they didn't need to try and do that because it didn't happen in the first one. So I guess that makes sense. They didn't even touch on trying to save them. It was very much that you love these people. You can try and give them peace by killing them.
Yeah.
That's kind of nice in a way. Not nice.
Absolutely.
They're already gone.
Yeah.
I think you could clearly tell that he was a fan of these movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a big fan of horror movies. Yeah. And it pays off. That was just a nice little point I wanted to chuck in.
Yeah. You could tell he was passionate about, and even in how he was speaking afterwards, you could tell he was very passionate about Evil Dead anyway.
Yeah.
Which is always cool. It's always helpful to have that much love for something.
And then get the chance to do it as well. I think that's very fun.
What a cool opportunity.
And it paid off.
He did such a good job. And it's still currently at 95%. I know it hasn't come out on Rotten Tomatoes, sorry. It's at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I really hope it stays high. It should do. I don't see why it wouldn't. But once the wider audience gets their hands on it, you never know what kind of happens. But oh, wait, does that count? Because have the critics all got it yet?
I assume so, but it can always change. Paddington changed.
Yeah.
It can always change.
Yeah. Just as a quick one, I only do a quick question. I know you haven't seen Army of Darkness, but how did this one rank for you of the 3 other Evil Dead films that you've seen? So you've seen Evil Dead 2, and then The Evil Dead from 2013. What's your kind of...
I think I'd put Evil Dead 1 first.
Yeah.
I think for me that's probably always going to be the case. Like I did that with Scream. I think that's always the case that the first one is just... Maybe it's the novelty of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
The first one's first. I think I'd put this one second. And then it's a toss-up between Evil Dead 2 and then 2013.
Okay.
I'd probably put Evil Dead 2 third, just because I really like Bruce Campbell.
That's fair.
And I really like Jane Levy too, but I like Ash a lot.
Yeah, so I think Ash is great.
I'd say Evil Dead 1981, Evil Dead Rise, Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 2013.
Nice, that's strong.
Do you have an order?
I mostly agree with you, except I would put Evil Dead 2 first. But yeah, no. I agree. I think Evil Dead Rise was very, very strong of an installment into the franchise.
I will say, I want to add to my point of liking Evil Dead 2, the mirror scene is really good. So maybe that does keep it at number 3.
Exactly.
Maybe it fiddles around in kind of other places. No, that's not into it. It kind of can move certain spots because I can remember that film's got some really good bits.
It's a fantastic shot.
But just to shout out to that bit, we rewound it back a couple of times to watch it. Which is good. 2 questions. The first one's kind of small. Do you think they're gonna do another one of any capacity?
At some point. I don't know that it will come as soon as other films tend to get sequels, because I don't know that the Evil Dead franchise is really like that. I think it's more just as and when they feel needed and necessary, which I really, really think is good. I think it's good that they're not just trying to churn them out.
I get what you mean.
And give you any old story.
Yes.
Ever.
If someone crafts a really good story that fits, go for it. But we're not rushing for one.
Absolutely.
I agree. My second question. Of all the Evil Dead films, which one would you rather be in? Or do you think you could succeed in, perhaps, taking into account the characters? Like, which group of characters do you want to be in? Which location? Which form of the demon?
Yeah.
It's now a much bigger deal in this one. 8 legs, however many legs.
Yeah.
Who do you think you could take on? Which environment could you survive in?
I don't know that you ever stand a chance of surviving, I have to be honest, but my initial reaction was to be like, I would want to be with Ash with the chainsaw hand, but also Beth had it under control towards the end.
She was on it.
She was pretty hardcore. So in terms of... I just love the silliness of the environment of Evil Dead 2. I'm a proper Evil Dead 2 fan. But I don't know. That's a really hard question. What would you say?
I think this one, I feel as though I'd survive the least in. Yeah, I feel as though I would maybe stand more of a chance. I'm saying that though, in all the other ones, it seems like only one person's going to live. So maybe I would stand more of a chance because 2 people live in
Maybe that's because you're not there though, baby. You might be the final girl they've been waiting for. Probably not, no offence. But who knows?
I'd like to be.
I don't know that I have the strength to be a final girl. I don't know.
I feel in Evil Dead 2, Ash absolutely knows what's going on and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And if you listen to him, which they don't, because they're all like, where's my girlfriend?
Yeah.
I feel like they could have had a chance.
Exactly.
I feel Evil Dead 2 Ash. Yeah, I feel like could protect me.
And I think as well it comes down to, if I was in it, would I know I was in it? So would it be like, ignore her when she's trying to tell you that she's normal again and she's fine, when the demon's trying to convince you that the person is actually, you know, your friend or whatever. You know, if you know you're in the film, you're gonna be like, shut up. If I don't know I'm in it, I'm gonna be like, I might fall for that. I'd like to think I wouldn't fall for it. After everything's hit the fan, I'd like to think that if you went demonic possession and then 2 minutes later were like, Ellie, I'm fine now, I'd be like, I don't think you are. I don't think it works like that. Boot to the head.
Boot to the head.
Sorry. And then the rest, that's not going to take you down.
Chainsaw to the head.
Yeah, but
if you had it.
If I had one.
Do you want a chainsaw hand?
No. I mean, with the preference, to take it on and off. A chainsaw glove.
Ah.
A chainsaw glove. Not very good if I wanted to do things such as maybe ride a bike, chop up my dinner.
You got the appliance right
knit.
there.
There's a lot of things you can't do with a chainsaw hand that would get in the way.
There's a lot of things you can do with a chainsaw hand.
I would also probably hurt everybody I came across unintentionally.
Edward Scissorhands. Ellie chainsaw hands.
I'm just thinking, like, with all of those things that I listed, it would just get in the way.
You'd be the best lumberjack around.
But he can take it off. He can take it off.
Oh, that's fine then.
So, yeah, I know, I'm realising now. I'm like, no, I thought it was, like, permanently fixed. If you can take it off. As a wrap-up, what did you give it on Letterboxd?
I gave it 4.5.
4.5? I need to check.
4.5.
I think I gave it 4.5 too. You gave it 4. I gave it 4.
I'm giving it 4. Because I think it was slightly too gory for me. That's on me, obviously. It was slightly too gory for me.
That's totally fair. I gave it a 4. I think it's maybe more of a 4.5. I couldn't really tell you anything that I didn't like about it. I thought it was fantastic. And I think it was the perfect length. I don't think it needed any longer. The pacing of it was great for that reason, because it didn't feel like you were watching anything for too long, or you were lingering on a moment for too long. Everything moved at a really, really nice pace. Which
I'm gonna say
makes all the difference to me.
I'm saying 4.5.
I've convinced you.
Yeah. It's again the reasoning of like, well, you go through like, why would I say less? And you're like, well, I wouldn't, so I should say more.
Yeah, as soon as you start listing the cons,
I'm saying 4.5.
And you don't have many, it does make it harder. Do you have any parting words before we go? This is your time to shine.
I'm thinking hard.
Take your time.
We had a great time, as did Best Leg.
Lovely.
It was a great movie.
Great. As always, you can find us over on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to see something really cool over on Twitter and Instagram, the Good Movie Pod, you can see Molly's super cool Evil Dead Book of the Dead bag that she made. And she proudly showed off.
I got some good pictures. I had a blue shirt on like Ash wears.
Yep.
I had my little bag on. I'm really proud of it.
It looks awesome. You should go check it out. It's a very, very cool replica of the Book of the Dead from the first and the second movie.
Yes,
not
it's a bit of a mashup. So if you'd like to see it, go and look at our Twitter and Instagram. They're at The Good Movie Pod.
Ooh.
Check us out. Let us know what you thought when the film comes out. I'm also curious at where other people are ranking this.
Yeah,
so
I want to know what people are thinking.
Where you're putting it and who you'd like to hang out with, as when we put, do you want to...
You can put us. You can say us.
You can say us if we were in it. Or if you want to say Bruce Campbell, that's fine too, obviously.
What have we got next? I don't know what we've got next.
Renfield?
We have got Renfield.
Is that next?
Another horror-y film. It's not really horror, but it's another horror-themed. And with that, guys...
Thanks for hanging out with us.
We hope you enjoyed the episode. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.